Hi, you guys. It is. I wish that I didn't have to deal with the backlighting problem. But unfortunately, that light, that bar light that runs the length of the room up there, wait a minute, there it is, way up there, is the only one I can control from my bed. And so it's always a little weird. I have my extra oxygen that lets me talk more from, the mask below me tonight, and I'm going to try. Sometimes the lighting's pretty good on this, and other times it's weird. Anyway, so I'm going to try and give you the update without having to put the mask on, because quite frankly, the mask drives me a little crazy. Having all this stuff on my face, and it was bad enough when it was just a couple normal cannulas, or a cannula with a mask over it that had holes in it. But now the mask is a more serious mask and doesn't even have holes in it, so that some of the sound gets out. So I'm going to try and aerate myself from below my face. Anyway, I'm so sorry. This is why I didn't have a career as a cinematographer. I am doing really well. And again, it was another good day. All the impressions that I had last night that I had difficulty articulating because I was so tired were actually underscored as correct, and nothing pretty much has changed from then till now, other than a lot of the test results came back, and Dr. Saya's, my transplant pulmonologist's assistant, came in today, and or resident, or I don't know what she is, but she was a really nice gal, and she saw my level of interest, so she showed me the tests, and I got to see the CAT scan of my lungs, and I'm going to see if I can get a picture from her so that I can show you guys. But it won't be as cool as actually seeing it on the computer, because that's weird. I've got dark shadows under my eyes. I'm so sorry. But this is what respiratory failure looks like. So I got to see, and it's like thin slices taken horizontally throughout your body, and you can actually see the different types of lung damage and where the lung is no longer functioning. And there's 3 or 4 different radiographic patterns that match up with what I have going on, and you can tell which lung is more damaged. And she went through the whole thing with me, and as you guys know, I find that kind of stuff fascinating. One of the reasons I'm so gassed about being a lung transplant patient in the first place is because one of my favorite things in my medical education and career, I loved case studies. And now I am a case study for myself, and I find every bit of it really interesting. So it was really a charge for me to get to see all that. But long story short, there are some interesting things that'll have to be taken into consideration for my surgery. If things are straightforward and they want to give you a single lung transplant, which is what they want to do with me, and I am more and more comfortable with that decision. I want to return to a lot of the more active things I used to do before my lungs got damaged. And so I had this preconceived notion that a double lung transplant was better than a single lung. But they feel they can get me as operational as I would like to be with just a single lung. And that turns out to be a wiser decision anyway, because one of the tests revealed that the left side of my diaphragm which is the muscle that helps you breathe between your abdominal cavity and your thoracic or chest cavity. And it muscles down to inhale, and it goes back up to help you exhale. And unfortunately, on the left side, which is the most damaged lung for me, the diaphragm is, they didn't call it severely, but it's more than moderately. I think they said seriously paralyzed. So it just plain doesn't move. When you do all the things that would move your diaphragm, my diaphragm doesn't move. So on the left side. So that's not going to be a lung, that lung, if they put one in on that side, it would not have the full assistance it needs to expand and contract that the diaphragm would provide. So unfortunately, my right lung still has around 60% function. My left one has about 19 or something like that, but they have to leave the left one in and put the healthy new lung at, full function on the right side, where it has the muscles of the diaphragm to help it function appropriately. So that was a little bit of a less than ideal situation, but easy enough to cope with. My transplant will be a single lung, and it will be on the right side. The other thing that's going on, before I get to some frequently asked questions, is I have the cardiac cath tomorrow, which, as far as I know, is the last of the tests that they do to evaluate what the strategy is going to be in the surgery. And this whole thing, they take all the data, they put it all together from the psychiatry people, the social worker people, the medical people, the radiology people, the internal medicine people, the hematologist that is in the process of checking out my coagulation disorder, and they get everybody in there in a big meeting after they have all the data back and the tests, and they strategize it like an actual battle plan. They discuss it for a long time. They say, okay, this is impacting this, and this is what we're going to do about it. And she's got, my carotid arteries, I love it. I had a lifelong high cholesterol, and I refused to treat it for, I don't know. I had some valid reasons for thinking that it wasn't that big a deal. But then later on, upon second thought, I had some other considerations for thinking that a high cholesterol really might be a wise thing to treat. So I did start treating it, and I now have a normal cholesterol by means of medical intervention with the appropriate prescription to bring it down. And but all the years that I didn't treat it, and with the medication that I'm on now, both carotid arteries are nearly clear of any kind of plaque buildup. They said they could see a little here, a little there, but it's not even lumpy. It's not even impinging on the width of my carotids, and it's not anything that's ever going to make those carotid arteries narrow or stiffen. That's one of the reasons I don't have high blood pressure yet, and and I may never have it because I have fully treated cholesterol now, and I am nearly plaque free. So that's really good news. And tomorrow, there's a cardiac cath of both sides of my heart. I have developed a little bit of pulmonary hypertension in the right side, some hypertension in the right side of my heart because of the back pressure that the right side of the heart pumps your blood from that comes back to the heart. It pumps it over to the lungs. And of course, my lungs are stiff and filled with fibrotic tissue, filled in with collagen, which is basically scar tissue. And so it makes the flow through my heart slow down and back up a little bit. And so in the heart itself, there is a high blood pressure issue. But with a new lung, that should, help considerably. And it's not that bad of an issue. I have some cardiomegaly, which means big heart, in my atrium, the top chamber of the heart, that has to pump against all of this back pressure from the lungs. So, but it's very minor, nothing that's going to cause any problems, and they don't really feel like it's going to be an issue for me going into the future with my new lung. And but they want to look at it. So tomorrow they are taking me to surgery. Surgery's supposed to start at noon, and rather than the femoral area, which is usual for cardiac caths, they're going to do it through the artery in my left arm. I believe that's it. Wait a minute. Or the right arm. Anyway, they're going through a wrist artery, which is called a brachial artery, up into one side of my heart. And then they'll go through either the carotid vein or a vein in my arm to get to look at the other side of my heart. And they'll look around in there. And then I believe that's the last test they need before they do the big meeting and plan out the battle. And once they've completely strategized and they know what they want to do, that is when they list you, because they don't want to. It happens that you get listed and 6 hours later there's a phone call. A day, 2 days later, there's a phone call. Come get this heart. It matches your patient, and she's really critical. So you have it. You got it. Come get it. And they don't want to be caught not fully planned and ready to put the plan into action at the time that they get that news. So they get 100% entirely ready before they say, okay, get her listed and let's do this thing. So tomorrow, that's the last test. And I may be groggy, I may not. Almost everything makes me tired these days. So I don't know how I'll feel tomorrow afternoon and evening when I come out. But what I can do is ask somebody else to post a brief update here, and you come check my page just in case. But otherwise, trust the fact I'm at the 5th best hospital in the country overall, and the 3rd best with these lung and cardiac issues. So this is a crack team. I got to tell you, having been involved in healthcare, I look around in absolute stunned amazement at what all is going on here. I'm already part of a research study, and every time that they come in to talk to me, there's a stream of residents, interns, nursing students, respiratory therapy students, other people that are doing PhD level research on different medical topics, and they come in and they ask little old me questions, because my experience at going through this can help some of them in their research and in their preparation to do things to help other people like me. And I am such an education geek that I am all for that. And if it means I have to breathe deep until I cough up half a lung so that they can hear what this sounds like through their stethoscopes, they can line right up and I'll breathe deep as long as I can until I pass out, and they can listen to what my lungs sound like, because it's kind of like a paying it forward thing to me. Teach the people who are going to help the people who come after us, and give them the advantage of knowing what this feels like and what it sounds like, and how they can make their great contribution to helping people live longer and better when their lungs decide to crap out on them. The other thing that I was going to do, because I didn't know how much I would have for you guys tonight, I got several questions, and from various directions, and for I think reasons that you all will graciously understand. It's super hard to message everybody and answer all the questions, and I'm a very wordy person. I don't mind being verbose on your behalf, but I thought maybe the way to do it would be in a video like this, so that everybody gets their answers faster. I appreciate the fact that you guys are so interested in my well-being, and I want you to know what's going on and be reassured in that. So what I did was I just gathered up many of the questions that I'm getting. Pardon my distraction, I'm going to get into the notes and see what the questions were, and I can do a little Q&A kind of thing for you. Okay, so I'm fighting the urge to speak out loud the access code to my iPad, because I talk myself through most every task. Anyway, the most frequent question, and thank you very much, is, what is your address at the hospital? And I know you sneaky people are going to bury me in cards, probably. And to be honest, I'm all for it. We'll get a roll of tape them up in here. There's plenty of wall space. I got a private room. I'm going to be here for a good while. I mean, I don't expect I'd get listed before next week. And then you got to count on the fact that it could be another 2 to 3 to 4 weeks before there's an actual match. So I will let you know immediately when my discharge date comes, so that, oh yeah, and that's right, and say my transplant happened 3 weeks from now, there's still 3 weeks in the hospital after that, although the address would probably change. I don't know that if this is where the medical unit would be. I know the first 4 or 5 days roughly is usually spent in ICU, where they don't put up the cards and any flowers that might come or anything like that. They keep them for you, and they actually distribute the flowers to patients that can have flowers and don't while you're in ICU, because ICU is serious stuff, and no clutter, no, it's very businesslike, and the people in there are in life and death situations. And so until they get them medically stable and send them to another room, they don't want a lot of things on the walls and everything, and in the way to be knocked over when the person crashes and everybody has to run in there with the machine that restarts your heart. So anyway, my address right now, where I am, where I can definitely get cards and would love to, is Candace Ware, UCLA Ronald Reagan Medical Center, room number 5159, can't see that well without my glasses on, and I don't want to put them on, sorry. 757 Westwood Plaza, Los Angeles, California, 90095. And so that's where you can send me anything that you'd like to send me. And I will also put it in the comments. So look for it in the comments if you didn't catch it in this video. Somebody asked me a question, and I thought it was a good one. I was wondering how they match. I thought they all were good ones, frankly, but this was something that interested me too, so I knew the answer. I was wondering how they match a lung. Is it typed like blood? Or by what parameters and protocols do they find the right one? Well, number one is location and logistics. Lungs have an average lifespan out of the patient of 4 to 6 hours. That's average, and there are some ways that are being developed by my surgeon, Dr. Art Haley, that will keep them alive longer by making the environment that they're shipped in more like the normal conditions that they live in your body. Warm, still quote-unquote breathing, and stuff like that. And but for right now, within 6 hours of when it comes out of the patient, it better be out of the donor, it better be in the recipient patient and all hooked up and blood supply resupplied and all of that. Kidneys can actually last 48 hours. Other organs are in between that. But for lungs, things like location and logistics and how fast can we get it there are important. So it's got to be close to here. And with this being UCLA, right next to the 405 in LA and all the other freeways around here, there are a fair number of donated organs here. That's why their wait times are among the shortest in the nation. So there's that. Second thing in matching a donor is your body size. The lung cavity, I guess I will resort to my glasses because it takes too long to go like this and squint and try and see what I'm seeing. So next you got body size. The donor needs to be somewhat the approximate size of the recipient. And the important thing is that the donor can't be larger than the recipient, because you do not, you're talking about an organ that expands and contracts, and it's in a space that just about fits 2 lungs and a heart. So you can't put in a slightly larger lung without limiting the amount of expansion you get, and thereby limiting the effectiveness of the lung. So you can get away with something a little smaller, but you want something that is at least not too big for the cavity that you're going to put it in. So that's the second thing. And of course, everybody knows your blood group is really important in terms of organ donation. And although the most commonly talked about group is, are you an A, a B, an AB, or an O? And that's where they start with the matching. It is also, there are several other antigens that are blood grouping antigens, and then there's more antigens beyond that. And not all of them are as important as others, but among all of those antigens, they do try to get the closest match, and they try to have matches in the most critical antigens that are known to exacerbate rejection. So you have some sort of benign different antigens that won't fight with each other too much, and you have other antigens that if they fight with each other, it's going to be a big problem. So it's not all that straightforward, and I probably haven't described it sufficiently because it was a long time since I was a blood banker, and I never was the one that worked a lot with HLA antigens and stuff like that. So I don't have a clear understanding of it myself, but that's what's involved. Then after that, you think about, well, who's the priority? Who gets the first whack at a donor lung that comes along? And that is the most serious patient. And children are prioritized. And so if there are child organs available, they're going to go to another child. And I am not 100% certain, but I even think there have been living donations of a lobe of a lung for a child. Don't quote me on it, but I seem to remember that that's like the only case in which a lung donor can be a living donor, is if all they're doing is donating a lobe to a child. But anyway, so priority goes to the sickest patients as opposed to those who have waited for the longest time, which, when you think about it, when you go to the ER, even if a person who banged their finger with a hammer has been there 4 hours, they're going to take heart attack guy first. It's just the right thing to do. So the people who are the closest to passing away from their illness are the ones that, as long as they've still got a decent survivability calculation, they're going to be the ones that get the organ rather than the person who's waited the longest, who's less seriously ill. And I have no problem with that, for one. Do you mind sharing your diagnosis? Not at all. You guys can ask me any question, and feel perfectly comfortable about it. This is my reality, and a lot of people are sometimes shy to ask questions about it, and some people are shy to answer questions. They're very private about their health issues. I'm not. I don't care. I'll answer anything you want. I've never yet run across a question about this that I found offensive. I can think of maybe someone might ask something that I decided not to answer, but I will never resent the question. Ask whatever you want, and I'll try to answer it. My diagnosis, my medical issue, and the reason I need a transplant in the first place is a disease called pulmonary fibrosis. Pulmonary fibrosis. And that means that my lungs have developed fibrosis or scar tissue sufficient to severely affect how oxygen travels across into my bloodstream. And so that's my general complaint and what is causing me the most problem. Each admission, you get a different diagnosis, and this admission to the hospital, whereas I've been admitted for an exacerbation of my disease that needed to be treated with immunosuppression and stuff like that. I've been admitted for a lung biopsy and stuff like that. This admission is the first admission I've had that's for actual chronic respiratory failure. My lungs are failing. I will be honest with you, even though I don't want to upset any of you. We are at the end of the time that we were given, and I got 9 years out of a disease in which 95% of the sufferers are dead within 5 years of diagnosis. So I almost doubled my expected lifespan, but it has reached the point now that within weeks or a few months, I could be in pretty serious trouble, even more serious than now. And so that is why all these tests are happening and everything seems to have jumped into high gear, is that my disease has finally worsened enough that there's a good chance of it killing me before the end of 2021. And I've faced this for so long, and I have of such strong faith that while I would deeply desire to stick around and have more time with all of my lovely friends, and I would deeply desire to be healthy again and do more hiking on the coast of Oregon and more driving around to meet some of you who I've become so close with over the years. The reality is the Lord might take me home. And man, you can't threaten me with heaven. You really can't. When he wants me, I'm all his. Even right here, right now, I'm all his. So that's just the way it is, and I win either way. I get my lung transplant, and I have more life and fellowship and enjoyment of friends and family and this beautiful earth that the Lord gave me, or I go home to live in heaven with him for eternity. Gee, I don't know. What would be the better deal? I'd love to have both. I'd love to have my cake and eat it too. And we'll see what the Lord has planned. Sometimes he does that. Sometimes he says, sure, you can keep living here, and then I'll take you home at a later date. So it's really looking to me like that's what he wants to do this time. So anyway, what was that tangent all about? I guess it's the words respiratory failure. That's officially on my hospital admission for the first time. And Dr. Saya has said to me for the first time, we're out of time. This has to launch. So that's what turned me into serious Sally here. But I have the peace that passes all understanding, and I have a foundation built on the rock, and I feel a lot of joy and no fear at looking at what might be ahead for me. So thank you, Jesus. Okay, I will indeed be right here in the hospital until a lung transplant happens, because I'm no longer, poor Bill, he was just working so hard to, everything that I need, he had to carry, and he had to carry it multiple times. And I was going through 20 to 25 oxygen tanks every 2 or 3 days, and we were having a hard time getting them from Lincare. So there was this constant anxiety that I was going to run out of oxygen at some point. And if I was left without oxygen at this point, what was it, the term? Somebody used it today. The respiratory therapist. We were talking about it. This is frustrating. If I were to not have access to oxygen, I would drop into the 50% oxygenated range, and that's no longer compatible with life. So I am very relieved that Circuit Rider and I both don't have that tension anymore. I'm here in a comfortable hospital room with oxygen, a bottomless well of oxygen being delivered to me. And I'm being kept comfortable and well cared for. And the poor man who was just sacrificing this year to be with me for this is no longer run to the point of exhaustion every day. He's got a faithful heart and a strong body and a strong will, and he would have done it. He'd still be doing it today if I wasn't in the hospital. But I'm really glad I'm in the hospital, and I think it'll be good for him, and I know it's good for me. So what was that question? I thought I had another one that was different. Anyway, okay, so do you have a PICC line? Different people have different lines to help in different ways with their disease. I do not have a PICC line yet. I've just had regular normal IVs for injection of, for rehydration, injection of dyes and medications for my testing, different things like that. I thought I was going to be able to get through more of these questions, but I'm talking so much and I'm running out of breath, so this might have to be the last one. So I've had routine IVs, and all they've been used for so far is the CT contrast solution. Yesterday in my nuclear med test, it was used for a radioactive dye to make an image of how blood perfuses my heart and my lungs. And that was shown to me also today by my friend from Dr. Saya's office. And that test came up looking very good. It did show that I have a little of the hypertension in one side of my heart. And so that was information that they needed. There was a test called echocardiogram with bubbles, and they actually shake up this stuff and make a bunch of tiny bubbles, and they inject it through your IV, and then you're supposed to bear down, you know, squeeze your abdominal muscles and like you were doing a crunch or something, and it'll shoot the bubbles through your heart. And if there are any of those little holes that can occur as a birth defect or when the foramen refuses to close after you're born, the bubbles will shoot from, with that pressure, they will shoot from one side of the heart into the other side of the heart through the little hole, so they can see if it's there and where it's located, and then they can fix it when they're in there doing the surgery. So, but I had no little holes. No air bubbles went anywhere they weren't supposed to go. So that's not an issue for me. Let's see. After transplant, you should see the picture, the diagram. I will have several IV lines and tubes. I will have an arterial line because they'll draw blood gases off to make sure that I am that everything is good in my I know the terminology for this, but it measures the various components of your oxygenated blood, which is the artery, and looks at how acidic you are or basic, your pH, how much partial pressure comes from oxygen, CO2, carbonate, you know, and they look at all that stuff to make sure that your lung is functioning properly. So I'll have an arterial line. I'll have a feeding tube because you can't eat right afterwards. I'll have a ventilator tube because they keep you on a ventilator till they know that the lung's going to function properly, and then they take you off. And probably a urinary catheter, and I believe because it's a single lung transplant, I will only have one chest tube, and that's a tube, no, two. I'll have two chest tubes. If I had both lungs transplanted, there'd be four. There are 2 tubes per lung. So I'll have those 2 tubes. So I'll be wired for sound. And gradually, all those things will be removed. And then you get discharged, and they take out that last IV line that they kept just in case anything happened. And off you go to home to do the rest of your recuperating there. There's still 5 questions here. And I don't want to bore you guys about everything, but several people have asked if Bill gets to visit in this age of COVID. And very recently, they opened you up to one visitor at a time. And once that visitor leaves for the day, they're not allowed to come back. But he's been getting over here for a few hours at the latter part of the day, pretty much every day. And well, I've been here 3 days, and he's been here every day. And the stinker always cracks me up when he comes, and that makes me cough, and that makes my alarm go off. And I don't know, he's just an imp that way. Tonight we watched one of the numbers from the producers, Springtime in Paris for Hitler, and I couldn't stop laughing because he gets such a huge kick out of it that him laughing is funny, in addition to whatever you're looking at being funny. So I coughed a lot tonight while he was here, and then I kicked him out and told him he needed to be home by 9 o'clock. So he went. Anyway, yes, he does get to visit, and thank goodness. I'm not a needy person, and I went through all of my life pretty much single, and I've been through hospital stays on my own before, but friends could always visit. But it would be a drag to be going through this and not have him be able to visit me. And some other people are going to do it too. Russ and Cheryl are going to come down, and they'll come visit me, but only one at a time. And once they leave for the day, they can't come back. So, and not even just one at a time, but only one per day. And this is to minimize exposure, because getting sick right now would not be a good thing. So, let's see. Oh, and also, I had made a few notes. The other reason I don't need or want Bill here for a full day is that he's still running full-time active ministry, his ministry called Heartbeat AT, and that he spends a full work day on that, and then he takes care of me in addition to it. So I'm glad I'm in the hospital now, and he can focus more on his ministry and then just come and see me in the evening, or when something important's going to happen. He's going to be there when I wake up from anesthesia. And it was something I worried about the most a long time. I was very scared that I was going to wake up in ICU with a breathing tube and a nasal gastric tube and feeling like crap and have nobody to say a prayer with me and remind me that everything's going to be all right, even though they tell me that you wake up feeling like a truck hit you, and pretty much one did. So I'm glad he's going to be able to be there for that, because I would cry if I woke up and there wasn't any good, faithful, long-time friend there to pray with me and tell me that everything was going to be all right. So that's the scoop. I'm glad that Bill's got a more normal schedule now, where he's not literally responsible every minute of every day for whether I live or die, because he was the one doing all the, pushing to get what I needed and get it up to me. And it was taking us 2.5, 3 hours to get me ready in the morning to go over to the hospital and then get transported around. We were in a real pickle on Tuesday when we went to see Dr. Saya, because we got over there and every parking garage was full to the gills and we had no place to park, and my appointment was approaching, and I was going to be late. And so he parked with blinkers at the doors and went to take me in, and someone said, they'll write you a big ticket for that. And he said, well, it's going to be a big ticket then, because she's got to get to her appointment and there's no parking anywhere, so we're going, and if I come back to a ticket, oh well, so because it's a hospital, they wouldn't tow. They wouldn't tow. He would just come out to a ticket, but he did not come out to a ticket. And an hour later, he found a parking spot and was able to join us at the appointment with Dr. Saya. So that's good. Anyway, I think I've talked enough for one night, and I am starting to lose track of what I'm saying. And we still have 6 or 8 questions left that I can give you tomorrow as that update. Maybe I'll wrap those up in the morning if you want me to. And that way, if I have to skip a nighttime update, then everybody won't be so anxious about how things are going. The procedure tomorrow should be pretty easy. It's not like they're cutting me open or anything. They're just putting some caths in there. And I do get anesthesia for it. But I have a feeling that might be because with the angiogram, I think they might put you into a CT scan or an MRI. I don't know for sure how all that works. I'll find out about it and talk about it tomorrow. But it's not a very high-risk endeavor as far as I know. And just a couple of holes where they stick the tubes up, and those are going to be in my arms or my chest or my neck or somewhere. And the biggest risk would have been the bleeding, but they put me on something that right before they do it, they have a way to reverse it. So I won't be at bleeding risk, and don't have to worry about that as much as if I were on my Coumadin. So I think I've run out of breath and verbosity for you tonight. And love you guys. And thanks for praying for me. Thanks for praying for my donor. Thanks for being interested in sending me cards. And thank you very, very much for taking this journey with me. And although this journey is going to last a year, because that is the minimum that it takes to go ahead and recover and get your strength back and be a real person again. So we've got some more time in this journey. But last night I was thinking what it's going to be like when striving towards transplant is no longer the major goal of my life. I guess then I'll have to make videos about what I see when I hike or something. Get back into the photography aspect of things, because we're all not going to know what to do. 9 years we've been doing this together. What do you think we ought to do afterwards? I'll let you tell me, okay? Because there's going to be an afterwards. I'm going to get to be active again. I'm going to drive around and seek out all you people and stalk you until you have coffee with me. Okay? All right. Nothing by mouth for me after midnight. I made them take all my fluids away and put them on a shelf above the sink, because I swear I wake up in the middle of the night and have a drink just on impulse. And I was afraid I would violate it, and then of course you don't get to do it the next day. So we're safe from me making myself ineligible for cardiac cath at the very least. And I will update you tomorrow as to how it goes. 48 minutes? Who the heck makes a 48-minute video even when they've got all the breath in the world? That's obscene. I don't even know if I'm going to post this. I don't even know if you guys are going to want to watch this. I guess we'll see. Love you. Bye.